going to move on now to the ladies at Platform, the business change managers, so Sarah and Liz. So they're going to talk through Dynamics 365 and how they're actually managing that during COVID, and what an amazing job that they're doing there. So hand over to you, ladies. Thank you.
No worries. I think I'm going to pick up the first bit and then hand over to Liz as we go through. So I'll just share with you a little bit about Platform Housing Group in case you don't know who we are. So we are a fairly large housing association based in the Midlands, about 45,000 properties formed following a merger of Waterloo Housing Group and Fortis Living. We've got a really wide geographical base and a diverse range of services that we're delivering. Late last year, we embarked upon our Platform One programme. And I'll talk you a little bit more through about what we're doing with Platform One. We're working in partnership with Crimson to deliver a programme of change which is supported by Microsoft Dynamics 365, and that's really where our starting point is. Key benefits of the programme for us around streamlining our processes, improving customer experience, making our decisions more data-driven, optimising the workforce that we have, giving us some easier to manage business systems and delivering that single version of the truth. So I think the reason why we're doing this is that we are a merged organisation. There's been a need to harmonise across the business and harmonise our ways of working. We have a number of highly manual processes. We've got quite a lot of frontline time still spent on what we would consider to be admin or desk-based tasks. A number of different systems that our colleagues have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes those systems can be difficult to manipulate and difficult to change when we need to respond to something and be flexible. And we know that our customers' needs and wants are changing. We need to respond to that. The customer experience outside of the housing provider really influences their expectations of what we can deliver to them as their landlord. So I'll just stop sharing that screen so you can see me while I'm talking. So our Platform One programme is broken into different phases. So I've got the pleasure of delivering the first phase, which is around CRM into our contact centre and a new customer portal. We have an existing customer portal, but we'll be delivering a new customer portal through Microsoft Dynamics. We were really fortunate in our phase one delivery work alongside Crimson. We were able to deliver before COVID-19 hit. So all of those workshops that we did and working with our colleagues across the business, we were able to do that face-to-face in workshops. Once we'd got to the point of agreeing our high-level design, that's when we all went into lockdown. And so all of our development work and our engagement with colleagues has been delivered in that environment, and not having the usual access to people that we would normally have. I think probably the key to making all of that work, obviously, is around communication and making that regular, structured communication. We have daily stand-ups, which is no different to what we would normally have done, but we have to be really quite structured around that. Make sure we have the right people there and we've got commitment from the right people to be there. Regular reviews, sprint planning. We've made really good use of Teams and chats on Teams, and just having access to people at home for those questions where I'd kind of normally go and stand over someone at their desk and ask them a load of questions. We're now doing that through chat and through Teams. We've been working with Crimson on producing regular videos that we've been able to share with key members of staff and key colleagues, so they can see the direction of travel, they can see the progress that we're making, which I think has really helped for us just to be able to spread that message and to keep people engaged on the journey as we go. I think key to all of this has been being flexible. There's been some bumps in the road, and those bumps in the road are going to come up, but you need to think creatively about how you solve those. I think probably a good example has been our communication plan. We had a lovely, shiny communication plan that we'd worked really hard on, and that really hinged on us getting face to face with people and taking the programme out to them. And delivering road shows and being present within teams. Obviously, we've not been able to do that. So we've just had to think creatively about how we deliver some of that communication work. So we've been getting ourselves invited to meetings across the business so we can really keep that engagement, keep that feedback going. Regular bulletin type updates, and our use of Yammer has, really increased over the past few weeks. We really sped up our rollout of Yammer across the business, and it's worked to our advantage in that we've been able to get some key messages out to people about the programme, rather than going through usual comms channels where you had to get things checked off and perhaps put on an intranet for someone not to read. People are really making use of Yammer, and it's a great way of us getting quick messages out to people and getting quick feedback from them. We've had to completely change our training programme. Again, our training programme would have really hinged on getting face-to-face with people and supporting them through that training process. So all of our training now will be delivered remotely, whether that's classroom training or coaching sessions or videos that people can access, or e-learning, demos, walkthroughs, giving people access to the system so they can have a play, try to break it. And we've really been able to use furlough as an opportunity for us. We do have some colleagues within our contact centre who are furloughed. And they're traditionally quite a hard to reach group for us in terms of training. They're quite difficult to get at because they're so busy and tied to the phones and email all day. Whereas now we've actually got an opportunity to deliver some really rounded training to them before they get back into the business. I think in terms of, because Jordan asked us to come up with some top tips as to how we've made this all work. A really key point has been that we've needed the support and buy-in from the top. We've had a leadership team who've been really supportive of this programme and have backed its progress throughout, and we really haven't seen any putting on hold of the programme, which is what I've seen happening in other organisations. I think as an organisation we recognise that this is not an added extra for us. This is absolutely fundamental to our bread and butter and the day-to-day part of our business, and will support our operational colleagues as we start to come through the other side of this. So I think it's been really important for us to understand that change management doesn't just stop all of a sudden when we've got colleagues who are trying to contend with different ways of working. We are here to support that happening, and as change management practitioners and people who work in technology, we absolutely support what is being delivered on the front line with our customers. And I think, I guess another top tip was allow more time for all of this activity. It has been quite hard at times to get the message out there. There's been times where people aren't ready to hear about the Platform One programme because they've been too busy focused on doing welfare checks to our customers and making sure that our customers are okay and supported. But persistence is key here. You will get to a point where that message will land. People do hear it, and people will understand the benefits of what we're delivering here, and will start to feel excited by what we're doing. And we can really feel that now as we start to go into the training phases for phase one, and getting more of those demonstration videos out there. We're getting some excitement around the business, and people are ready to hear those messages now. Delivering the training remotely is going to take us more time. It takes more investment. We need more support from our learning and development team, but it's really important that we invest now to make sure that this is a successful go live for us, and all the indications is that things are really positive at this point in time. So I think that gives you a little bit of a flavour of what's going on in phase one around customer experience, but Liz has probably had a bit of a different experience in phase two, so she'll be able to talk you through some of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. So as Sarah mentioned, we managed to gather all of the requirements for her phase, face-to-face with people in that workshop setting. For phase two, we started our workshops at the end of February and the beginning of March, just as coronavirus was really hitting the headlines and becoming a reality for us all. And the possibility that we'd need to run those workshops virtually seemed more and more likely, and to be honest, filled me and the architect with dread. But looking back now, I think we'd probably tell ourselves not to worry, as it can be done and it does work. Looking back, I think there have been two elements that have been really important for us. So first of all, we invested quite a bit of time in trying to prepare the attendees for what the sessions would entail. So ahead of running the actual workshops virtually on Teams, we ran a session where we got people together, taught them through what the format would be like and the expectations of what they were going to be asked to bring to those sessions. We also shared some hints and tips for using Teams and covered some etiquette, basic things like switching off your microphone when you're not speaking and, using the chat and things like that to make sure that people could really engage with that session as much as possible. And we also tried to make sure that we'd really got the right people in the room. We had a lot of discussions about the right number of people at the workshop. It's difficult when you've got a lot of people on a call for everybody to be able to take part. And you might end up with too many voices or people sat there not saying anything for the whole of the session. But if you don't get enough people around that table, you're not going to capture all the detail that you perhaps need. So we had quite a lot of discussions about the right balance there. In terms of the format of the workshops, we made sure that we broke those down into manageable chunks. When we'd been running them face to face, it was sort of start at 10 and finish at 3:30, lunch break in between. That's quite intense in itself. But when you sat looking at a screen for that length of time, we didn't think that that was going to be the best way to keep people engaged. So we broke those down into sort of hour-and-a-half sessions with breaks in between so that people could come and go. And that was particularly important for people who were also trying to manage childcare at home during this incredibly difficult situation that we found ourselves in with the schools being closed. We also made sure that we tried to use as much of the technology available that we'd got. So obvious things like sharing screens, using the chat function, all of this seems pretty basic nowadays, but go back 8 weeks, a lot of people weren't used to working in that way. Ollie, the solutions architect from Crimson, made great use of Notebook. He has a stylus and can draw on his screen. So we used that as our virtual sort of flip charts and post-it notes and used that to be able to write up all of our process flows. And another key thing for us has been recording the sessions. So that's actually a real added bonus where virtual workshops work better than face-to-face workshops because everything's recorded. So if your notes don't make sense or you can't remember exactly what was said, you can go back to those recordings and it's all there for future reference, which we have found to be a real bonus. One of our other key things was we'd started using a spike board in our face-to-face workshops. We ran about 3 before we went into lockdown. And we brought that online so that when discussions started either going into too much detail or a decision couldn't be made in that session because the right people weren't there or we needed to go away and get more information, we would put that on our virtual spike board, and we had somebody on the call who was responsible for recording any of those outstanding actions or decision points so that they were all captured and didn't get lost. So I think going back to what Sarah said, Jordan had asked us to think about some learning and top tips for running these workshops virtually. So I think one of the key things for us was planning and replanning. So each day in the early stages, we would meet afterwards. Myself, we've got product owners in our team, and we met with Ollie, the solutions architect, to review what had gone well and to keep talking about the format. So it took us quite a long time to get to a point where we'd got a format that we were comfortable with. I say a long time, it was probably only a few days. It just, these days and weeks have all merged together. But keep reviewing that and communicating between the core team who are trying to run those sessions. For us, I think one of the key learnings has been that the virtual sessions can actually be more focused. Breaking it down into those time slots does help sort of focus the attention, and also, you know, people are less likely to interrupt or go off on a tangent when you're on Teams. So that's been a real positive, actually. They give you the opportunity to add in and remove attendees more easily. So if it becomes apparent that, you know, someone on the call isn't, you know, doesn't have the right information that you want, or it's not their specialist area, they can drop off and you can call somebody else up and ask them to join in or send somebody a message. So that's been really useful in terms of, it's been a bit more flexible way of working rather than having just a core number of people sat in a room together. Talked already about the recordings, really useful, and they've been a real bonus for us. And just generally, you know, going back to that thought of we were really dreading having to do this, it did fill us with horror, but actually this really works. It's worked really well for us. It's enabled us to keep the project on track. If anything, it's brought us probably closer together as a bit of a project team, especially the working relationship with guys at Crimson, because we have had to keep having these conversations and planning and replanning and reflecting on what's gone well and what hasn't gone so well. So I think, you know, it's, if I could go back in time to 10 weeks ago, I'd tell myself not to worry about it because it does work and your project can continue. So hopefully for anybody who's facing similar sort of situation, that can be quite reassuring. So that was it from me really in terms of what we've been doing. I think Keisha was going to open it up for if anybody had got any questions.
Perfect, thank you. That was great. That's really great insight into how you're working and managing to work so effectively as well. So thank you. I think we've got a question or a comment at least in the chat from Angela. Totally agree, Liz. Virtual workshops broken down does help attendees to focus. They also allow people time to reflect between sessions.
I think a couple of points from me, guys, to add. I think that for those that are on the call that I suppose are either thinking about or are already in flight with a Dynamics 365 implementation. I think the first comment, which I suppose is unrelated to the work that we've been doing since COVID. One of the things that I think I really like at what you guys at Platform have done, and I think John's actually on the call, but testament to I suppose what you said, Sarah, at the start of exec buy-in. What you've done, which I think is quite refreshing, is you've got business change managers, you guys, focusing and championing the core pillars of the project and cornerstones of the project. So that allows us to obviously gain efficiencies and look at the overarching program with different people at different times. I think where I've seen sort of housing associations or other organisations completely out of sector just have, I think, the role of one business change manager across the whole CRM program, in my opinion, potentially doesn't necessarily give you that breadth of being able to deliver and enable the actual business change, Sarah, which is what we're talking about here. It's that as you have seen, and as most of you guys know, and as I suppose testament to some of the demonstration I've showed, the technology in some cases from Microsoft is the easy bit, really. It can enable us. It's there. It's always getting better. And always will need to get better to cope with sort of modern customer demands. But the real sort of, in my opinion, sort of, I suppose, drawing point with these large programs is around how do you win hearts and minds? How do you communicate the people process change of this of the program, as opposed to just can the solution technically meet our requirements? So I think that's one thing. I think you guys are absolutely right. I think our reservations as a partner going into virtual workshops was we were always going to be concerned about interpretation of requirement. So I think when you're in a physical meeting room, in a physical workshop, gathering requirements and discussing and articulating how the solution build design is going to look, I think it's fair to say when you're in person, the viewpoint is you can feel like you've got some human emotion. What we just call, it's not necessarily a very nice phrase, but pressed the flesh of individuals to actually make sure we've understood each other. So I think what you've said, Liz, around making sure that if those of you, the guys that would potentially either look to start a dynamics process, which probably if it's going to be in the next 3 months is going to be virtual, or are already engaged, is really find that model that works for you to able to sort of revalidate and ensure that you're validating requirements to ensure that effectively the design is fit for purpose and is suitable. But I think on the whole, we're also sort of echo your sentiments as your partner. A lot of the apprehensions and kind of that we had have almost been mitigated by the fact that we've got on with it and we found a way that works mutually for everyone and used the technology to our advantages. At times it's been that there's been, I suppose, little bumps, but once you find what works for you and once you actually, like we say, find that model, use the things like replacing sticky boards and draw charts with virtual ones and things like that, you actually can create a very focused and interactive experience. I think then the only other bit though I would add to sort of your ladies' talk there is taking the downtime after the workshops and trying to not completely forget what was learned, but making sure that you're rejuvenating yourself and taking regular sort of breaks, and then after sort of being able to sort of reflect. I know we talk about a lot at the moment, there's a lot around the digital space going around well-being and things like that, but being able to give your best in those virtual workshops, which can at times feel like you're at a certain space of your home being virtual and don't leave that certain space even if you have the odd break, taking that time in the evenings to sort of reflect and actually just get some fresh air and things like that, if you're doing back-to-back days of workshops, really allows you to kick into gear for the next.
I've got a question in the chat. Thanks for that, George. So from Vicky Askey, apologies if I say that wrong as well. Thanks, Sarah and Liz. Really interesting. Can I ask how you're approaching the business readiness elements of the implementation with teams receiving the change, such as supporting L&D, culture changes, etc.?
Okay. Do you want me to go first? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that I think that, as Jordan said, that really is the key part for us in terms of ensuring that business readiness. We've been in post now for about a year, and we only really kicked off the programme in earnest in December. In terms of the dynamics implementation, so we've taken a lot of time to work with our teams, understand how our business is working, and being present with our teams to really get into the place where both we understand the business and they understand the change that is going to happen. I think no doubt some of the COVID-19 responses, it kind of accelerated that. We had teams who had access to Teams and chat, etc., weren't really using it, but now I've got far more exposure to some of the different technology that is out there, so that's definitely enabled us to do that. We've also been able to support teams around some of their COVID-19 response, so we've really got that buy-in. We've been able to deliver some really quick bits of technology to them around welfare checks. So that's really helped teams to again have some exposure, and also to understand the flexibility of what we're dealing with here and how this is a really different approach to anything that we've done before. We have constant dialogue with the teams that are going to be on the receiving end of the change, and I guess that's bad wording in that they're directing the change here, and we are working with teams to get the absolute best out of what they do. and to understand our customers and understand what our colleagues' needs are and translate that into something that's really going to work. Working really closely with our L&D team, just to get in place some formal workshops, whether that's training or just ways of working with our teams, to help us move that culture change forward. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are making small incremental steps and helping the business to understand that this is an evolution for us, and we're not just going to deliver something on day one, and then we'll walk away. And getting that reassurance and that buy-in has really helped.
Great, thank you. There's been some really nice feedback, so thanks for all the platform, really positive, refreshing approach, and thank you. WHG are facing a similar challenge, so it's great to hear you've had success with delivering remote workshops and mitigated the impact on timescales. Appreciate you sharing your top tips. Kira, I think you've got your hand up. I have just noticed. Did you want to say something there?
No, I think I was testing the show my hand. I did have a question, and then I think it kind of got answered, so I'm just going to leave it. I think the chat is probably more important. Sorry.
Okay, fair. No, I just wanted to double check. Perfect. Has anyone else got any questions for the ladies or for Jordan or for the group that are here today? Okay, I'll take that as yeah, that's fine. I'll take that as a no. So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much to Liz and Sarah for your brilliant talk and insight as well to platform. That was really good and useful. And also thank you to Jordan. That was a really interesting showcase. If everyone's okay with it, I'll email over once this has been recorded. So once it's been sent to me, I'll send it on to you. But also I'll send some information on the virtual agent chat box as well. We are also looking to create a Teams group so that you can all collaborate and communicate. And if you've got any challenges, discuss them in that group as well. So if everyone's happy for others to have their email address, I better check, because if not, so yeah, I'll add Jordan into that as well. That's brilliant. I'm just seeing some comments. Thanks very much, everyone. So we will be running these webinars every month. So we'll have another one towards the end of next month. So do look out for your email, because we'll invite you over to that.